So this is going to be an ever brief philosophical discussion I'm going to conjure up today. So the question is Nietzsche. For me, I want to interpose and transhumanism and posthumanism and advance in human society through the power of various art mediums, especially the digital art mediums of today that integrate the symbiosis between humanity and AI or quantum computing or GONs like those kind of entities or panpsychic entities of according to like cyber psychism. So I think that Nietzsche certainly, if his Ubersmensch or Superfrau, and Superfrau is a far less noted concept by kind of neurotypical society that of the superwoman. Now, if someone tends to have more altered senses of perception regarding the neutrality versus the natural heterogeneity of phenomenology, then it's easy to see that it's quite bivalent. But anyways, there's also the Dionysus versus Apollonian dialectic, which is almost like a Taoistic Shakespearean drama, and there's also the notion of, now would Nietzsche would argue for a transhuman society? Well, he was a very perspectivist. He didn't believe in absolute objectivity across every possible world, such as rigid designators, as Kripke later instigated and invented. Now, anyways, philosophy to me, it kind of transcends the notion of just objectivity and relativity and into something that's intersubjective or a gestalt, like a gestalt psychology of all the interlocking parts. So I think that certainly Nietzscheanism is a very inventive, sort of Hildegard of Bingen or a Benjamin Franklin or a Leonardo da Vinci kind of mindset. And I think that Nietzsche certainly proved that the higher woman, the higher man, the higher human to become the most actualized sense of themselves in an existential or humanistic psychological sense. Nietzsche was very heavy on the power of the will and to direct the human into channeling their forces or their talents, their daemons, as Jan would say, into the natural faculties of reason and perception, which become Kantian critical prolegomena. I think that's how you pronounce it. Prolegomena? Indeed, subcategories. And I think that therefore Nietzsche would likely approve of like highly creative art, philosophies, thoughts that really bring humanity into a fresh, refreshing aesthetic grandeur. And for that sense, Nietzsche, really much was an aesthetician. So he really did believe in the realism of aesthetics. And I think the transhumanism is integral to the aesthetics of what humanity could achieve of in the far future. So I think that the notion of Nietzsche being a transhumanist is very true in a way that it kind of expediates the notion that Nietzsche wasn't really opposed to the ideal of a liberation via higher development of the faculties of one's consciousness and the complexity of it. And I don't think Nietzsche had biases against what races or sexes or any kind of subjugations that we tend to see in black and white homogeneously today, such as with Republicans, Democrats, is binaristic thinking that Nietzsche and Hegel and thinkers Spinoza even in some mode Dasein sense, advocated for. So I think that the reality is that transhumanism is very much about humans living until the end of time, if not beyond the end of time, until this glorious parade of beauty, joy, happiness, and stupefaction of splendor. And I think that Nietzsche would really want a in his genealogy of morals, he says humankind invents the axiology system for which much of the language that human beings use when they have a mental object, they type typology token it. So they kind of create this binary symbolistic indexicality relation. And I think that's often gives ledgeway to the noumenal and phenomenal world in Kant's work too. So I think that Nietzsche was certainly a hedonistic kind of proactive thinker. He wanted people to take that proactivity. He was one of the most proactive visionaries of his time. So I think that Mm, then Nietzsche certainly would have advocated for a transhuman society that was responsible in its hedonistic metaethical sense, but also was very flourishing and beauty and beauteous and vivid. And he would have wanted a wonderland, like he would have wanted this paradise or jungle, Minon's jungle, that was very real, but in an aesthetically and tangibly beautiful real way. So I think that Nietzsche, therefore, likely, in some sense, argued for not only the authenticity of being, but the different platforms of being across different worlds, kind of a pre-Kripkean or Anscomian or Lewisian or Tarskian or Stalnakerian kind of notion of what it means to possess hedonism or any kind of counterfactual axiology or lethiology in different worlds and their sub parts, as we say in mereology. So I think that transhumanist mirror topology would especially be interesting. So I think that Nietzsche would very much likely argue in favor of transhumanist civilization that allowed both the intersubjective and the intersubjective flourishing of humankind at its highest level into transhumanism and even beyond the post-absolute infinity years in the future. Consciousness will still remain in Nietzsche's eyes, not just in a pure Hegelian ousia, Aristotelian substance way, but in the way of what it means to dream and love and explore passions and be reach natural hierarchies, which might be animalistic in some sense, but it's also very mathematically realist and Platonist. So, anyways, thank you so much, and I think Nietzsche was indeed, in some sense, a true transhumanist pioneer. Thank you.